Welcome to the TIMFD podcast. Today is my favorite day is about appreciating every day as it comes, no matter what life throws at us. We hope that this podcast speaks to you, and if it does, please like, share, and comment. Now let's find out why today is our favorite day this week.
Hi everybody, Dave, Sam.
How you doing?
Today is our favorite day podcast, and today we have the question, why grieve over a cat? A furry furball friend. Now we do this jokingly, but we want you to get on to this podcast just by that.
Yep.
But also Sam had an experience this week, actually, just this last week. So tell us about that.
Well, it was today. I had to put our second cat down. I had to do that one earlier in the year. He had cancer today. Sophie, 16 years old.
Oh my gosh, that's a long time.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Whew.
And so we're looking at. She was in pain.
Yeah.
Whenever she would eat, it would come back up.
Yeah.
And then when she wasn't eating, she'd still bring stuff up.
So she was in trouble.
She was in trouble. And I thought we were going to lose her over the weekend before we could get to the vet. And the most humane thing, the hardest part was getting her out from under the bed.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was afraid of stressing her out and giving her a heart attack.
Right.
She finally, sardines coaxed her out.
Right.
So
the goal here is how do you work through that loss, right?
That's hard.
Because for us, we had a cat from long ago that was tied to our youngest daughter, named Rambo.
Okay.
And Rambo ended up getting a leukemia after about 8 years, something like that.
Yeah.
And he was just dying before us. So we had somebody come over that did this humanely, and Rebecca got to hold him while they did everything, and he died in her arms with us around her, and we prayed with her, and then went and buried Rambo, and it was hard. It was hard emotionally, and it was hard, I know, emotionally with you, and we also dealt with another cat of ours, and it's called Mr. Fuzzy Pants.
Yeah, I remember him.
Mr. Fuzzy Pants was a big cat who said hi to everybody. He was like a dog. But with him is, again, he caught, it looks like some sort of leukemia, something that was quick. And he was the one tied to my cancer. So how we wrote the book, Today's My Favorite Day, there's actually a chapter in there that talks about
Mr. Fuzzy Pants,
and that connection. And so losing him was emotionally hard. I was surprised how hard it was, and how we had to, Tanya and I both, and with Rambo, with Rebecca, to grieve over those losses. And if we didn't, it was going to come back and haunt us later on, even with a cat.
Yeah, it does. I got to hold Sophie today while she passed. And I insisted on that. I mean, it's just one of those, because she, she's been there there's a connection. Yeah. And I do know that, I cried. There's no two ways about it. It was just one of those. But I also know that if we don't grieve over our animals, our loved ones,
if we don't grieve well, we're in trouble.
We're in trouble.
Emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, we'll be in trouble.
And for those of you who are wondering about, why we're talking about cats, Luke 12:6, and this is from my sister. She had to put her dog down this past weekend. Luke 12:6, and I'm reading from the King James because that's what she sent.
Sure.
Are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 farthings, and not one of them is forgotten before God? Even the least of his creation is special to him.
Yeah.
And so our pets are special to us, and
they're created by God too.
Yeah. 16 years, that's a long time.
And we're also to be managers, protectors of these animals that we've been entrusted with. And so there's that tie in, and they become friends. They become all of that. The key here is about how do we grieve through it. So crying through the loss of a cat, a lot of people would kind of laugh and go, really, loss of a cat? If those who are laughing have not been through a grief, have not been through a loss, or they're emotionally stunted where they can't even get there. I look at the same as, working through that grieving process as the loss of let's say, a parent. Both of us have lost parents. Yes. We've had to work through that process with their parents. It's a little easier because they were around a long time. They had great lives. Mine were mentors. I know with you, same thing.
Same thing.
So, but it was still hard. And I cried over both my parents.
Yeah, so. And I still do from time to time. And I'm absolutely. Sure you do from time to time. Because something will come up. It'll remind you either a good or bad memory.
Songs always do that to me.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
And people look at you and say, why are you crying? And, here's the thing. Why are you crying? Say why you're crying.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for me,
it
reminds me of the joy I had with my parents. The song "Good Father." That song is tied to my dad so much because he and I like the song. "I'll Fly Away," an old hymn that my dad loved. With my mom, it's a song by Elevation, "Do It Again," so more of a contemporary song. Right. "Amazing Grace," because of her generation, because she played it on the piano. "Jesus Loves Me, This I Know, for the Bible tells me so." Same thing, she did that. Yeah. So that kind of the music just I get there and I go, okay, I'm gonna cry through this and also laugh through it. And I know that's what you do with your mom.
With my dad, the song was "In the Garden."
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and it's "I Come to the Garden Alone," and it is all about the person singing the song and their relationship to Christ. Yeah. And it's a very personal song. Yeah. My dad was told one time by a pastor's wife that that's a very selfish song. And my dad said, absolutely.
and that's the fun part of this too. But we wanted to do the cats thing because we thought that would be really hard to get people on to a podcast dealing with grief. But we need to talk about this. This is part of the life process, the whole process that God has put together that ties to our faith because we are all going to die. We're all going to, if we've made a decision to follow Christ, we're going to be in heaven. If we haven't, the scripture says we'll be in hell. Separated from God. And I know no one likes to hear that, but that's the reality. And we always want to tell the truth. We don't want to people please, don't want to be codependent in this area. So if you're struggling with grieving, if someone's struggling with that, of working through those emotions, there's some reasons for it, but I do want to read a scripture to you that's out of Ecclesiastes 3:4. It says, there's a time to weep and a time to laugh.
Yes.
And there's a time to mourn and time to dance. Yep. So for you were talking about your dad's song, and then you had a story that made you laugh, right?
Exactly.
But the song sometimes will make you cry, right? And the cat, Sophie, when she was passing away, made you cry. Yeah. But I'm sure you were laughing, trying to get her out of underneath.
Trying to get her out of bed. And I found a picture of us traveling.
Oh, that's right. You were saying that.
Coming down here to Florida from Wyoming.
How many years ago was this?
That 2017.
So some years ago.
Yeah. And so she's sitting on the center console of the car watching. She's just staring straight ahead. And I'm like, you know what? That made me laugh then.
Yes.
Made me laugh now.
And that's a good thing. You want those kind of memories to stay in front of us. And that's why we wanted to talk about this today, because biblically we are to grieve.
Yes.
We are not to wallow, but we're to grieve. And grieving is different for different people.
Yes.
I had there's a woman that's on Instagram that had the loss of her mother in 2016 and started a whole kind of an Instagram thing on grieving. It's really good. And she put out a question: do men grieve differently than women? It was just a question out there. Yeah. And I thought about it for a moment, and I said, well, men and women are different, of course, but it really depends. Mm-hmm. With my wife and I'm the extrovert. She's the introvert. We grieve differently. Mm-hmm. For me, it's outward. I don't care if people notice that I cry, that I'm talking about a loss, working through this process. Tanya, it's a lot harder, and it takes a lot more out of her, and she'd rather be with just a few people where I would love to be with a few or a lot. It doesn't really matter to me. So extroverts and introverts definitely do grieve differently, and in both cases, the extrovert can get so caught up in stuff and in people that they don't even grieve at all, and the introvert can bottle it up so much inside that it just kills them. They start their health starts causing trouble. They start having health problems where the extrovert ends up with relationship problems. He destroys every relationship he or she because they're not dealing with the grief, not dealing with the junk. And so for us, we wanted to bring to you, it's okay to cry.
Yep.
It's okay to be sad about an animal.
Yep.
About a pet, a friend. It's okay to cry over old friends.
Yes.
We've gone through losses of friends.
Yeah.
Mark Mayville, Pastor Mark, here at our church, he used to tell me that he just had to grieve over 3 friends. Yeah. And they were all younger than him. Mm-hmm. And it just happened in just 1 week. Yeah. So it's okay to cry through that. It's okay to feel that and be able to work through that. Yeah. I have grieved over many friends that have passed away, some older than me, some younger than me. One of my old roommates just passed away just this last year through a freak accident, an extreme sport accident. And so those things happen, but we can also laugh at some of the stories and things that we had with those people. So, and go ahead.
It's so grieving is going to come in many forms. We've said that. A lot depends on yourself, and you have to grieve in your own way, but you also need to seek help.
Yes.
Because you cannot do it alone. First off, Scripture tells us we are not meant to walk through this world alone. I know you are doing some things different. We have CR. We have many things that we can do to help us grieve. We had a dear friend up in New York, and her funeral, I think, is this week. She was in church. They had a big old worship service going on, and she was standing there worshiping, and worship service was over. She sat down, passed away.
Yep.
And for this lady,
that's a perfect time, but it's still not perfect. There's no such thing as that. Right. Her friends and family are going to say, no, it's just a loss.
But knowing her, that's the way she wanted to go.
I can see that.
And here's the thing. Stuff like that will come back to you, and you need to grieve through it.
Yeah.
You need to face it, to talk about it, to get it out there. And we have our prayer team in this organization. There's about 10 of us. And so we have a little chat going. We're talking, and then all the memories and some of the.
You guys were talking about the memories of her.
Yeah, talking about the memories with her, And yes, there were some tears. There was a lot of laughter.
Yeah.
Just think about your parents who in their, my age, 70 or whatever, and they're trying to learn new technology. This was our friend trying to learn new technology. She was a teacher, so she had that, that mentality there. But we're able to grieve because of all those good stories, and we can talk to one another.
Yeah.
And so there's that common thread.
Yeah, I know for us, I went to a hospice counselor for a while with my parents, especially my mom, and worked through that with, her name is Betsy. She worked with Tanya and I both, and it was great. And she really helped us through kind of working through mom's passing, because mom was, dad had passed away a couple of years ago. They were both prayer warriors, but mom became even bigger, a bigger prayer warrior for us. So, so we went through that loss. And then when we went through the loss of our daughter, Rebecca, which is a stunning loss, yes, the hospice, Betsy was still there, but she even said, you need to get into therapy. So we got into with a therapist, a Christian therapist. We also got together and now are meeting with people from what's called Griefshare. And so we go to Griefshare and watch the videos and talk with everybody about, the different losses you're going through, but not just wallowing in them, is how do you work through the process? So we're learning a lot, which is great, because I could kind of go, okay, this is what I need to do next. Oh, this is why someone says something. Because, all of us say stupid stuff at times through the grieving process. And so when someone says something like, oh, they're in a better place and that kind of thing, that's great. And I understand that. Not the time to say it. Not the time to say it. That's at least one thing I'd learned is keep your mouth shut and just give people hugs. And so, for someone who is having to be around someone who's grieving, someone who's going through the pain of that, they're going to go on their timing. It's going to take their time. It's going to take a different times where they finally kind of go, okay, I'm moving on from this, or moving through it, not so much on it, but moving through the pain. And relationships get different. Yes. They just do. And so we need, if we're going to work through this, you're going to need, like you said, to get help. Yeah. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't. Yeah, they just don't. They kind of go, yeah, I grieved, and then they move on. Yeah. And then they wonder why the relationship in their marriage is struggling, or why their relationship with their kids is struggling, or why they just can't seem to connect. Let's say someone loses a spouse. Right. Because we're in a grief share where a lot of people lost their spouse. And that's one of the biggest things is how to work through that. which I couldn't imagine, work through the loss of your spouse and come out through the other side as a healthy person who can live alone.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Or if God says, I'm going to bring another relationship to you, get into a healthy place where you can actually not destroy the relationship. Right. You know what I mean? So grief is hard. And here's another component that a lot of people don't understand, which we've learned through therapy, is that if a person has a lot of trauma in their past, if they have been abused, if they went through a divorce as a kid or as an adult, if they went through very difficult circumstances, what will happen is when they hit a loss that's that big, it's a big loss, it will travel all the way back. That grief will go all the way back, and they'll re-grieve all these losses through their life. And if they don't have help to do that, they will get stuck, and they will be horrible for everybody. Yeah. They won't be able to work through the grief. They'll get stuck. They'll start isolating. I mean, it's just what happens.
Right. Yeah.
And so we've made it very clear with us that we're not going to do that. We cannot do that. My wife has much more trauma in her past than me. I grew up in a really good home situation. Tanya did not. And so there's a lot of grieving that's going on just in her past to work through that. And I'm learning this. I'm seeing this, and I'm going, wow. We are grieving differently, and we're grieving differently because of our pasts are different.
Yeah, it's amazing what we tell ourselves when it comes to grieving. And I'll be the first to admit, my mom had Alzheimer's before she died.
Yep.
And the last 7-8 years, she didn't know who I was.
Yeah.
I told myself for 7 or 8 years, I've already lost my mom.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and so I'm thinking like that I've already lost my mom.
Text. Sorry about that.
There you go.
Go ahead.
And
one of the big mistakes when you do a podcast is not to turn off the sound on your phone.
Yeah. So
I apologize. Go ahead.
Oh, no worries. So here I am thinking, okay, no big deal. You know, I've already grieved, right? Until I go up.
Yeah, when you went up to see, you guys did the event and
we did Celebration of Life here a couple weeks ago, and I'm sitting there thinking, I didn't grieve. What I did is what most men do. I pushed it to the back. I pushed it back there and said, I've lost my mom years ago, yada yada yada, and that's wrong. I'm good. I'm good. Yes,
I hear that a lot.
Yes, I'm good.
I'm good.
Boy, those are 3 words you
I'm
just
fine.
use.
No, you're not.
Yeah, no. And so now I'm starting to grieve better over it. One thing I'm able to do that I even through all that time where I said, you know, I've lost her, and I couldn't tell many stories about her.
Yeah.
Now I'm beginning to be able to tell stories about her.
That's
good. I was raised in a good family. I had some abuse, but it wasn't family.
Yep.
And so it's one of those, I can talk about some of the goofy things she did.
Yes.
You know.
And have fun with it.
Yeah, I got to tell this story. Mom drank coffee in the morning. Okay, we used to go to a private Christian school in Concord, California.
Okay.
So going down the highway, there was a bump. Now that bump was there every day.
Yeah, never changed.
Never changed. So we're driving to every day. She takes a sip of coffee, spills it down. I mean, every day.
That's hilarious.
You know? And then she'd say, I know that bump was there. So
I can't remember the bump.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But you know.
Well, and I think that we have to work through, I know we have to work through the grieving process. We can't push things back.
Right.
But a lot of people do, thinking, I'm better, I'm doing better. I'm doing better than them because they're still grieving and I'm not.
Right.
Well, you never dealt with this, so of course you think you're doing well until a couple of years down the line.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, even if they go through the process and grieve well, a lot of people think, well, after a year, you're going to be better. There's something about a year that suddenly makes it better. And it doesn't.
No.
Matter of fact, we found out through Griefshare that the second and third year can a lot of times be harder for people, especially if you've been through a lot of abuse, a lot of hurt, a lot of stuff. Now if you're going through all this and you kind of work through it, now you're finally getting to where, you know, this person that was lost in your life, you're now getting to deal with it. So for me, the loss of Rebecca has been devastating. the working through it, I'm learning a lot about myself, and that's a good thing. And there's a time to weep and a time to laugh.
There is.
And a time to grieve, and there's a time to dance and get up there and go. And so we're doing that.
Yes.
And that doesn't stop us from being on a beach and just kind of thinking about her, or my mom, or a friend. It doesn't mean that we wallow in it, but we are cognizant of the loss and thanking God for the time we had and the time we're going to have with them, because we're going to see them. These people are in heaven because they accepted Christ. Right. So that's a lot of peace there. Yeah, but why grieve over a cat? Yep. And the reason for it is because if you don't grieve over a cat, how are you going to grieve over anything else in your life? Yeah. And that pet, is something that we do need to grieve over, because it's a animal that was put into your life for your care. You're responsible. You are to be the good manager of what God has given you. Yes. And part of that managing of that animal is to love that animal and take care of that animal. And when you lose that animal, there is a loss, and it needs to be, I have experienced a loss. God help me through this loss. And so then when you have issues with losses in family members or a parent or a child, you recognize, I have experienced a loss. I am going to be different. Doesn't mean I'm going to be worse. Doesn't mean I'm going to be better. It just means my life is different. And it's going to be different. And when I acknowledge that, I can start moving forward. Yes. So the grieving over a cat, Sophie, which is a good thing. I'm glad you cried. I did that with Fuzzy Pants. It is that we can move forward and we can grieve over the other losses in our lives and be in a healthy place.
I just have to pass 5 o'clock in the morning.
What?
I just have to get past 5 o'clock in the morning with Sophie.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, because
because the cat hung out.
Yeah, I'm up at 5 every morning, and she's.
I get that.
I mean, we're talking Mao all the way down until she got her food. Anyway,
and they bother, and the cats bother you. I have that with the cats. Yeah. Now all 3 of our cats. Yes, I have 3 cats in our house. All 3 cats are now coming down into my office and jumping on my lap while I'm trying to read my Bible to get pet and that kind of stuff. So you're gonna lose that. Fuzzy Pants did that with me every morning. He sat down. And I read and pet him while I read. So we're going to go through those losses. But if we can't grieve over the loss of a pet that was connected to us, that God put with us, there's no way we're going to get into a healthy place. No. So grieve over those losses. Laugh about the good times, like you said, in the mornings. And your mornings are going to be rough for a little while. And but also to be able to laugh through, like the cat being on the the front of the car like that. Those are the kind of things we need to be able to look back and be in a healthy place by saying there's good things that took place too.
Absolutely. So, now, if you're in a place where you are grieving over something, you need help with that, please reach out to us. We have a CR program here at the church. We can direct people where to go for grieving.
Yeah, and with CR, you can go on to celebraterecovery.org or com. I can't remember which one, but just look it up. And you can find a Celebrate Recovery in your area. Right. And then Griefshare, GRIEF share. .com or org. I can't remember which one, but please go and look that up. There's grief shares all over the world, just like there's Celebrate Recoveries, and you could get into a new class that's going to be coming up. And I just take it from me. You need to do it.
You do it.
It's a healthy thing. You'll learn more about grief, and you'll be able to help others. Because, as it says I think it's 2 Corinthians, that God comforts us with a comfort that we can't understand. Right, so we can then eventually be the ones that comfort others. And so, this is good to learn right now. And if the grief happens to be over an animal, that's okay too. So go ahead. End us.
This is it. Y'all, thank you for listening. Today is my favorite day.
Y'all, that's great.
I know. I was born in Georgia.
I know. My gosh.
So thank you for listening to us. Today is my favorite day. This has been David Tallner, Sam McKeown. Live intentionally. Be very, very blessed. We're out of here.
Sorry about the phone going on. That's my fault.
Thank you for listening to TIMFD. Today is my favorite day. Views, comments, and opinions are those of the host and guest alone, and Dave and Sam are solely responsible for the content of this podcast. TIMFD is produced and directed by Alex Korn. Music is composed and performed by Chuck Fott. Thank you for listening. Have a great day, live intentionally, and be very blessed.